Welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Let's start with the headlines. More than 9,000 people killed and millions displaced, and yet Sudanese face no respite from bloodshed and terror, according to the UN. 6 months of war have plunged Sudan into one of the worst humanitarian nightmares in recent history. We'll have a special report. The end of the so-called state of siege in DRC has come as a relief for many in North Kivu and Ituri. We'll get some reactions from Goma. And we'll go back to last night, South Africa's victory. After knocking out France at the quarter-final stage, the Springboks will be back next weekend for the Rugby World Cup semi-finals. Sudanese face no respite from bloodshed and terror. A statement from the United Nations as the conflict drags on. 6 months ago, a conflict erupted between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, plunging Sudan into one of the worst humanitarian nightmares in recent history. Bastien Renouille is our special correspondent and has this special access into West Darfur.
Behind me, civilians from the Masalit community are dying. I'm 30 kilometers from El Geneina, the capital of West Darfur, where the main atrocities took place during the past months. The Rapid Support Forces and local Arab militias are responsible of these killings, and I can see them a few hundred meters behind me. They are in military trucks watching the border with Chad. These members of Arab militias are targeting the Masalit community, an ethnic African tribe. They've killed hundreds, if not thousands, of men, women and children. According to the United Nations, they even dug mass graves to bury the bodies. Here in Chad, I met with one refugee who participated in the collection of the bodies, collaborating with the Rapid Support Forces.
Every morning, we started by gathering bodies outside in the street. First, we had to count them. There were 50, 60, 70, depending on the day. It was forbidden to take photos. We could only work and nothing else. We loaded the bodies into a lorry, one on top of the other, like goods. Once there were 80 bodies in the lorry. We asked, "Are you going to bury them properly, each in a grave?" They said, "No, we're going to put them all together and cover them with soil." We asked where they were going to bury them, but they didn't want to answer.
To survive, many families have decided to escape from West Darfur and El Geneina and to seek refuge here in Chad. More than 400,000 people have crossed the border behind me. More than 200,000 people are currently in the city of Adre. Among them, 85% of women and children. Here there is no fighting, they are safe, but they are still in dire need of help. In the camps, they live in makeshift shelters. They lack water and food. The healthcare system here is not strong enough to help them all. So international NGOs and the United Nations are trying to help them, but they say they lack money to do so. So they are all calling for greater international assistance to save these refugees.
Water, food and medical supplies are running low in Gaza, and with the continuing war between Israel and Hamas, Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Egypt this Sunday as the US continues efforts to get humanitarian aid across the Rafah border crossing into the Gaza Strip. Fraser Jackson has more from Washington.
When he set off for the Middle East last week, Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, had numerous aims. One was to stop the conflict from escalating. The second was to declare the United States' unwavering support for Israel. The third was to secure US hostages being held by Hamas. And the fourth was to guarantee aid to the south of Gaza. Now, it is on that last point that Antony Blinken went to Egypt on Sunday. Egypt, interestingly, is the only regional ally to push back on the US's unwavering support for Israel, saying that Israel's reaction to Hamas's attack went beyond the right to self-defense, turning into collective punishment for 2.3 million people in Gaza. Now, the border between Gaza and Egypt is a real choke point for aid. Anthony Blinken is trying to allow those 100 food aid trucks that have piled up on the Egyptian side of the border to get into the Gaza Strip to provide much-needed humanitarian relief. In exchange, he wants to get a few hundred US citizens trapped in Gaza safely into Egypt. Now, this is a big step back from what was originally proposed. Blinken at first wanted free flow of Palestinians into Egypt in exchange for that aid, but Egyptians said that was a non-starter. They were concerned about both the security and economic implications of such a move, given that the Sinai Peninsula is home to such tourist hotspots as Sharm el-Sheikh. However, it was confirmed after many meetings between Blinken and al-Sisi of Egypt that the Rafah border crossing would reopen.
And France is also urging the delivery of humanitarian aid and the exit of foreign nationals from the Gaza Strip. French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna, who held talks with her Egyptian counterpart Sameh Shoukry, said the weight of the conflict must not fall on Egypt. And you just heard Egypt is facing calls to accept refugees from Gaza. Colonna also announced that France was going to mobilize 10 million euros for the people of Gaza. The announcement made the headlines last week in the Democratic Republic of Congo. President Félix Tshisekedi declared a gradual lifting of the so-called state of siege in two eastern provinces, North Kivu and Ituri. This exceptional regime, in which power is given to the military, had been in place for over 2 years. Aurélie Bazaraki-Bangula and Emmett Livingston.
For over 2 years, the provinces of North Kivu and Ituri have been subject to this exceptional regime. Civilian administration has been entrusted to the military and the police. In some areas, curfews were imposed. In Goma, the capital of North Kivu, the president's decision has come as a relief.
We're really pleased with this measure. We are free. We can carry on with our activities as usual.
We haven't seen the benefits of all these measures. People are still in a state of insecurity. Across the provinces, people are still being killed.
The Congolese government introduced the state of siege in an attempt to restore peace to the provinces, but it's failed to stop violence from armed groups in the east of the country. In August, this MP from the ruling coalition took part in a roundtable to evaluate the state of siege alongside other politicians. They were all in favor of lifting it completely.
The measure is a good one. I know the president's flexibility and his sensitivity to the pressing demands of the population and elected representatives, but also his prudence in security governance, because the situation remains fragile in the east. The wish is that before the election scheduled for the 20th of December, we will no longer have a state of siege in North Kivu and Ituri.
President Tshisekedi's announcement comes after fighting erupted in some territories in North Kivu at the beginning of October, ending several weeks of calm. The clashes are pitting local armed groups against M23 rebels. According to the United Nations, more than 80,000 people have already fled their homes.
News in brief, Ivory Coast has a new Prime Minister. Robert Begré-Mambé, formerly the Abidjan district governor, is expected to form a new government within this week. This appointment follows the dismissal of former Prime Minister Patrick Achi and his cabinet on October 6th by President Alassane Ouattara. And now let's finish with some sports. South Africa could be set to make rugby history after defending champions defeated host France by just 1 point in a very tense game on Sunday. France has now crashed out of the tournament and South Africa is one step closer to winning the Rugby World Cup for the 4th time. Camille Nedelec looks back at the game.
South African rugby fans rejoiced as the Springboks beat France on their own turf 29-28. That crucial extra point securing their spot in the World Cup semi-finals.
We've never played this way before and we played amazing. It was full of action and drama and tears even. During the game, we just kept crying because the scores kept fluctuating. But it was an amazing game at the end of the day. It was amazing.
The victory was hard won, with fans on tenterhooks as France put up a fierce fight in the first hour. By half-time, Les Bleus were in the lead by 3 points. But it wasn't to last. In a brutal second half, the Springboks limited France's talented backline to just 6 points. And France failed to make the most of a South African yellow card, which deprived the Springboks of a forward during what could have been a pivotal 10 minutes.
We scrambled a lot and we scrambled hard, especially when we're short of numbers. You know, we talk about chasing lost causes as a group. You know, you don't give up until they put the ball down over the try line.
The Springboks are the defending champions and 3-time World Cup winners and are set to face England on Saturday. English fans are already bracing themselves.
Well, we just have to wait until next Sunday. Well, that's it for this edition. Thank you for watching Eye on Africa. Stay with us. The news continue on France 24.
They're known for their cuisine and saying hello with a kiss. They only work 35 hours per week, when they're not on strike, that is. How true are these clichés about France? Every week, Florence Villeminot tears apart stereotypes. Join us for insight into French culture and current events to understand what makes the French so unique.
French Connections, presented by Florence Villeminot on France 24 and France24.com.